Welcome back to another episode of the React Native Radio Podcast. Episode 302, Landing a React Native Job with Taylor Desseyn.
So I had a warmer topic all set up for ReactConf. I just got back from ReactConf and everything. But unfortunately, before we started recording, Robin and our guest Taylor found out that they both have a mutual love of Formula One. And just that's all they've been talking about for the last, I swear, half hour. So
this is Jamon's life recently, is being stuck listening to me talking to someone else about Formula One and feeling alienated, much like other people feel when
how the tables
somebody
have
talks
turned.
about basketball.
Right. Mazen and I have talked about sports for years on this podcast in warmers, and Robin just sitting there rolling her eyes. And now the tables have turned.
It is my time.
The only Formula One thing that I do is I watch Drive to Survive on Netflix. And that's like the most American thing. I don't watch races because I don't want spoilers.
You don't want spoilers for the next season of Drive to Survive?
Yeah. I mean, come on. Like, I don't know why they televise those.
I get it.
Oh, man. That's actually
It's
really
so bad.
funny.
So for the warmer, I'm just going to ask, what's your favorite Formula One team, Robin?
Oh, McLaren is my team for sure.
That's your jam.
Miss
Okay. McLaren.
Lando Norris has been killing it recently.
Spoilers. Jeez.
By the time this comes out, he'll probably have started losing again. I don't know.
The new season will be out of Drive to Survive. Yeah, makes sense.
Mazen, do you have a favorite Formula One team?
So I'm a Ferrari fan, but also a Lewis Hamilton fan.
Oh, okay.
Current driver.
Well, next year you'll be able to put those two hands
you're about
together.
you're about to be really thrilled here.
Yep.
That's
No spoilers, Jamon, but they might team up. We don't know. You'll find out next
You'll
season.
find
I
out.
did hear that much.
Yeah.
Taylor, what's your favorite team?
My favorite team, I'm always about rooting for the underdog. That's just who I am as a person. And so I like Williams because they were once great. They were the powerhouse. And then now they are just doing their best. And so that's what I really like them. And I hate to say this on air, but definitely got to get rid of Logan Sargent.
Oh.
It's
Okay.
true though.
All right.
It's true. It's like kicking a puppy though.
He may be marginally better than Latifi. Marginally.
Do they have their lineup for next season?
They've signed Alex Albon, but they don't have a second. They're talking about. I've heard rumors about Valtteri, which should make you happy, Jamon. He's Finnish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Valtteri Bottas.
Just
Bottas.
taking
Yeah.
pictures half naked and in streams. Very Finnish.
In saunas.
In sauna.
Sauna. Yeah, in sauna. Yeah. Well, I don't really have a favorite team. I used to enjoy watching Haas with Gunter Steiner.
I love Gunter.
I actually saw Gunter at React Native EU last year.
Are you
that's
serious?
right. He was like a
Yeah.
keynote or something.
He was keynote.
Yeah, he was a
Stop.
keynote speaker. It was really cool. Yeah, at a tech conference. Gunter Steiner.
Clearly, he's changing. He's like shifting his career direction a bit.
Yeah. He's, at first when I watched Drive to Survive, I didn't really like him because he was just so caustic and everything, but he kind of grows on you. All right. Okay. Enough Formula One. We got some other things to talk about. Before we get into the topic, a reminder that this episode is sponsored by not Formula One, but Infinite Red. Infinite Red is a premier React Native development agency located fully remote in the US. If you're looking for React Native expertise and more velocity for your next project, hit us up at infinite.red/React Native. And don't forget to mention that you heard about us through the React Native Radio podcast.
That's your first ad read in a while. That was good.
That was pretty smooth.
That was really good.
I was impressed.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I'd buy
Wow.
from
Jamin, I think NPR is calling you. Do you want to pick up that call?
Because I've had a little bit I had bronchitis last week a little bit. My radio voice is in. Okay. Quick intros. I'm Jamon Holmgren, your host and friendly CTO of Infinite Red. I'm joined by I can't believe we haven't used this one yet, exquisite co-hosts. Robin Heinz, our Director of Engineering, and Mazen Chami, Senior React Native Engineer, also at Infinite Red. And our guest today, Taylor Desseyn. Actually, can I ask, is it Desseyn?
Yeah, you nailed it. DESIN.
awesome.
You nailed. No one says that on the first try. So props to you, man. That was huge.
I
Editors, please
usually
leave
ask.
that in.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I usually ask before the podcast, and I forgot to, and I get to, and I just like panic said it. Desseyn,
And it
you know?
worked.
Killed it.
All right. Taylor is a talent advocate at gun.io, an accomplished speaker, podcast host, and championship winning hockey defenseman.
What?
I'm surprised
Yeah.
you guys haven't been talking about hockey.
Well, I mean,
Jamie
we
and I
talk
always
about hockey
tweet
all
at
the
each other
time.
about hockey. So.
It's true. Yeah. Did I miss anything important in your bio?
No, that's
Taylor?
it. That's it. I'm about to be a father too. Baby boy is coming on America Day. So we are
wow.
quickly approaching. I asked my wife if I could dress up in Chubby's American overalls with a bald eagle face mask and blaring the Pledge of Allegiance. And she just looked at me and walked away. So I think that's
That was a
there's no accounting for some taste, like. All right, let's get into our topic for today. We are talking hiring in React Native, and there's no better person to have on the program than Taylor, given his position and what he does day to day. But before we do that, Taylor, tell us a little bit about yourself. Beyond what you said in your bio. How did you get to where you currently are?
Yeah, I was a broke musician living in Nashville, serving tables 6 nights a week, and I knew something had to change, and so I leveraged my only few connections I had at the time, which is indicative of what I do now. And then found a job through a friend of a friend. And I guess the rest is history, as you can say. So I've spent 13 years in the engineering/talent space. I can pretty much confidently say now that I'm a developer without being a developer, because all I've done is hung out with engineers for the last 13 years. Say what?
If someone had asked me who Taylor Desseyn is from Twitter, I'd be like, oh, he's a dev.
Yeah,
You're
right?
just
Yeah,
like hanging out with the devs all the time.
Yeah,
It's true.
It's been pretty special, and I don't take it for granted. I know I tweeted this, Jamon, you obviously liked it,
Mhm.
but I mean, I never take for granted about being on these podcasts or speaking at conferences, and especially as just a recruiter, a connector of people, because there's a lot of bad ones out there. I would say 99% of the industry is pretty terrible, but there are a handful that are really, really good. And so, just being on here, I really appreciate it. But yeah, I've spent 12, 13 years in the talent space. I've helped scale engineering teams from nothing to huge enterprise teams. I've helped, I've seen the behind the scenes of what works at companies, what don't, in terms of hiring engineers. And then obviously I've placed over 1,000 engineers in new jobs throughout their career. And so it's awesome. I love what I do. Just being able to be in community and hanging out with wonderful folks like yourself.
Aw.
I've never seen a recruiter, like embed themselves into the community like you have. And I've never seen it. Generally speaking, recruiters sort of like approach their job in a very different way. But I know that developers appreciate it. They certainly have connected with you really well, Taylor. So talking about our topic here, as most people know, 2021, 2022 were super hot hiring years.
Yeah, we need to bring
great
those
years.
back. We need to bring
Yeah.
them back.
Right,
That'd be
exactly.
great.
Do you have the magic potion for doing that? Because
I wish.
they were great years for developers who were looking for a job. However, last year, 2023, and part of this year, we've been hearing about a lot of layoffs, and it's been harder to get jobs. Take us through that progression from your perspective as a talent advocate all the way up to today, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a crazy journey over the last few years. So, I spent 12 years of my career, to kind of set a little bit more of a framework for the conversation. I spent 12 years in the traditional recruiting agency space, right? So there's two types of recruiters: your internal recruiters that work like at Google or Netflix that recruit for those companies, and then there's the agency recruiters that essentially, when the internal folks can't find talent, then they reach out to us, right? And so, people don't understand the volume of people I've had to meet. It's been 15 new, like back in my last company, we were supposed to meet 15 new people every week, not to mention maintain existing relationships, not to mention going to meetups, going to conferences. So, I mean, I probably truly have a Rolodex about 15,000 engineers at this point in my career, who I know and I've met. And so now moving out of the recruiting agency space and being at Gun.io, it's really cool because I'm really in an intersection of engineering and talent. So so Gun.io, we're a talent marketplace. You know, the biggest competitor to us is TopTal, which most people are familiar with. But it's really cool because we're building hiring products. We have an engineering team. But then I'm also still out there, very public, speaking at conferences, talking to engineers, bringing them into the platform, working with hiring managers, scale their engineering teams. And so it's a very interesting, you know, I get a very interesting view of the market, and what we're going through right now is nothing I've ever experienced in 13 years.
Wow.
I mean, this is the last 2 years is crazy, with just how down it's been. You know, we went through the biggest, you know, growth we ever had in the last from 2021, 2022. And then I would argue and say this is the hardest it's ever been when it comes to hiring talent. You know, we're out of that zero interest rate period, right? That ZIRP period that we've all been talking about, all these tech blogs, and that's really affected folks when it comes to hiring. And also, like, companies still need to hire. Like, companies are still hiring. Like, I want to tell folks who are watching this, like, there are companies still hiring. The problem is that companies are trying to be more specific about what they want. They want to niche down, you know, 10x, which is why I think you should reach out to Jamon and Infinite Red, right? If you need, people need specialties right now, right? So if you need React Native, you got to go with folks who know it, right? And so, but right now it's difficult. It's difficult to get hired. It's difficult to I think it's still difficult to find good talent because you're inundated with hundreds and thousands of resumes of people who have not even touched React Native or React, and it's kind of a mess. And so, yeah, we're in a very interesting time right now.
How is remote work playing into that? Like, how, are you seeing some major trends with remote work versus being in the office?
We're going the other way.
Really affect that?
Yeah, we're going the other way right now, right? I think companies realize that they have all the advantage again, right? And the return to office has been definitely a conversation. I have my own podcast that I go every morning. It's a live show, and was talking with a VP of engineering this morning, and we talked about, to separate yourself right now, you got to be open to going on site.
Interesting.
You got to be open to hybrid stuff. I think it's going to turn bad for companies that mandate this stuff, because again, it's all a pendulum, right? We saw it. It was heavy candidate, now it's heavy client, and it'll be, or heavy company, and it'll go back to the candidate side. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing folks pushing for on-site because they can, because people are pretty desperate just to get hired. I mean, my last company, for example, we moved into a beautiful multi-million-dollar facility. COVID hit.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, listen, let's call it what it is. Like, there is an invested interest for companies to get people back on site and fill up the buildings that they're paying for.
Yeah, I have this kind of like duality to me, because I consider myself a software developer. I live and breathe the tech, everything, but I'm also an employer. And so I'm kind of on both sides of that coin. I'm not looking to get a job. I'm looking to hire people sometimes. And when that happens, it's a yin and yang type of situation where sometimes this can help me as an employer, but I'm also seeing my friends like struggling to find work, and it's hard. So I definitely, I don't know, the perspective is really weird for me, because I see both perspectives at the same time.
Well, and we're like the biggest remote work advocates that you'll find as well. And so we sympathize with the people that experience remote work and don't want to go back to doing it any other way, because we think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I've interviewed Todd, Jamon, and Gant on the pod, because I just really appreciate how y'all do things, right? I mean, Jamon and I've gone live, and we've kind of unearthed how you guys do interview processes, and it's so intentional. It's out of the box thinking, especially when you're trying to hire from a remote perspective. I think it's just fantastic.
I want to take the chance to bring it back to React Native a bit, but so do you hire React Native engineers specifically? And are you seeing that React Native developers are in demand right now more or less than maybe other disciplines?
You know, it's hilarious. If you asked me this at my last company, I would say we never get folks.
Interesting.
Right. So this is why I'm glad I'm at another place, because I can get a more holistic view of the market. But because we're a talent marketplace, we have a lot of folks that are asking for React Native right now. And now maybe like I started to get hints of React Native towards the very end of my last company I was at. But now, like, I'm actually training my team currently on just mobile development, React Native, because we're starting to kind of get an influx in it, and we need to be able to speak to it, at least to what it is, right? Versus, you know, just native mobile development versus cross-platform. But I'm definitely seeing an uptick in it. We're seeing an uptick in it. I think there's a lot of people. I think with this market the way it is and all the layoffs, I think you're going to see a lot more people innovating. I think over the next 10 years, I think we're going to see a lot of innovations that come out from the engineers that have been laid off at Meta that realistically don't want to go work at any, another big tech. They want to do their own thing because they have the money. And so I think we're going to see a kind of a surge in innovation. And I think a lot of folks are doing a lot of mobile development, and we've seen on our platform an uptick in React Native, kind of one-off part-time people to help spin up a startup.
I mean, we've seen this with our clients that companies are adopting React Native as a way to do more with less, basically.
Yeah,
because you need half the team. You can repurpose a lot of your web developers to build your mobile app. It's a way for them to basically have a smaller staff and still achieve a competitive mobile app. So I'm not surprised.
And listen, I'm not a developer, but I do know that, and I have no idea why React Native isn't used more. Like, it makes no sense to me. Again, like, I'm not a developer, but like, if we're just like speaking like in very layman's terms, if you know React, you can do React Native. So why the heck are you not doing React Native development? To me, it just baffles me from just an architecture and management of people perspective.
Jamon, this is your whole blog post. About
I was gonna say, Justin, we need to clip that out and just like put that on all of our socials, because that's a great pitch for React Native. Well, here's the deal: because you're not a developer, you see this, and all of management sees this. They start pushing it. Developers get set in their ways. They have certain languages that they've become experts in. It's sort of like when a company moves from like QuickBooks to Xero or something internally. The people that really know QuickBooks inside and out, even though Xero's better, are going to be like, no, QuickBooks is the way to go, because then they're leaving behind all of this like institutional knowledge, all of this like very specific knowledge. And so if you're a really, really great Swift developer, then it feels like you're taking a step backwards to go to React Native, even though I have always said native developers who move from like iOS or Android, who are good at that, make the best React Native developers because they understand the underpinnings.
I'm glad my dad doesn't listen to this podcast, because he is exactly what you just said, Jamon. Except he's not even on the QuickBooks. He's on Microsoft Money 2006.
No.
Oh, wow.
He loves it so much.
Microsoft Money.
He takes his CD-ROM. Yes, I said it.
Yes.
Everywhere he goes. Sorry, Dad.
Go, Dad.
A CD-ROM?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But Microsoft Money is cool if you use it.
He's like a Perl developer or something like that who refuses to let go.
I've recruited a lot of Perl developers.
He also has a, what's that called? Oh, I'm showing my age here now. Damn it. Sorry. The DOS printer.
Oh yeah. No way. He has a dot matrix.
The little
He
tear off
still
on the
uses
side?
that
way.
till today. Yes.
Okay, I kind of love your dad.
Can we have him on the show?
I think you should.
Sure.
I want to talk to him.
Old tech. This is great.
Yeah. Well, okay. All this kind of brought up a question, Taylor. So when you're hiring or helping hire for React Native developers, are you seeing web engineers make the switch over, or are you seeing native devs kind of make that step in? Who's coming into the scene?
I could use explicitives right now, but I see really stubborn hiring managers not willing to take on React folks, and us having to like go out and find folks. And to me, I just don't understand it. And I've asked Jamon multiple times, and the DMs said, how hard is it to learn? This can't be that big of a jump. And again, I tweeted this the other day because I'm dealing with clients lowballing candidates right now. Like, that's another thing I'm having to address. And it's like, again, I'm not a developer, and the ignorancy of engineering managers who won't bring in, I think, again, I looked at some of your questions in terms of diversity and bringing more females and diversity into tech. You have to be willing to take a chance on people, right? And if you're so stuck in your ways, we need a React engineer because it's React Native, and it's like, why? Like I think if you have a solid person who understands React Native very well, the in and outs of it, you can build a team around that person. But maybe I'm off. I don't know.
No,
you're not. I'll say
not.
From experience, whenever we go onto a new client, the hardest people to convince. So management is usually all for it, right? Because we talk about the benefits of React Native and kind of everything that it helps management.
It's a business slam dunk.
Business decision, right?
Yeah.
100%. But when you kind of take that deeper dive and then you tell the web dev, hey, you're going to work on mobile, they're like, go, show me, tell me. Like they're so excited. Then you tell the native devs. Sorry, I almost had a Freudian slip and said iOS devs. We tell the native devs, hey, we're going to adopt React Native. They're like, hold up. No.
Yeah.
No. And then you have another battle there. So,
I have found, because I was an iOS developer before, and I have found that there is a certain breed of native developers who immediately see the benefit of React Native, but it's kind of a small slice. It's a small slice. Usually they're really, really high level ones.
They're more likely to see it as a threat to their job and their expertise.
Right.
Web developers see it as an addition to their expertise.
Yeah,
they're learning
exactly.
something new and they're adding to their skill set versus replacing their job, basically.
Real quick, I will tell anybody who's listening who's a mobile developer, whether you use cross-platform or native, it's not your demand is going to be just as high. I'm just going to tell you that now. So native devs, if you don't want to switch it because you're worried about your job and marketability, you're going to be twice as marketable if you can pick up native or React Native and no native, and then vice versa. So for people who are worried about that, that's a lame excuse. Stop it. Learn both because it'll literally 2x your marketability.
Oh, it's so true, because you'll maintain your native skills because you'll still I promise you'll still use them doing React Native. Plus you'll be able to say, oh, I can do native or I can do React Native. Like, I'm versatile. Like, it's just a win.
And you can do iOS and Android, which you couldn't do before. So yeah, absolutely. Taylor, a while back, as you mentioned, you had me on your show to talk about interviewing processes. And I want to, what I'm really doing is I'm teeing you up for a rant, but I want to know what's the current state of interviewing processes out there?
I think it's gotten worse, to be honest. And this isn't me. This isn't, I mean, I rant in general just because I'm angry after doing this for 13 years. I just have a lot of pent up anger. I mean, I think right now it's in this market. So job seekers and individuals, when the market was ripping, were lazy. I'm going to say it now. Job seekers, you were lazy. 2021, 2022, you didn't research the company. You didn't come with questions. You could sleepwalk through an interview process and get a $50,000 raise. It was easy, right? Now it's not. But now the companies are getting lazy, right? There's no intentionality when it comes to interviewing. Communication across departments are awful. The job descriptions are terrible. You're leaving a lot of people on red / ghosting, right? It's a complete mess. And you're lowballing candidates, right? Because you think you have the power. And so again, I think market swings like this cause the two profiles, the job seekers and the hiring managers and companies, to be lazy because it's easier for their demographic. So right now, it's just a mess. My interview this morning with the VP of engineering, we talked about just the importance of, like, writing a good job description could literally solve 50% of your hiring problems from a talent and diversity perspective. And then also too, literally just giving intentional feedback for folks that have made it longer through the interview process could literally help retention in the long run, because they'll be able to refer their developer friends. I've talked to so many developers who literally say, if I was treated with respect during the interview process, even if I got rejected and got feedback, I would refer my friends to that company. Wow.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, I've seen it happen, and I've seen people reject a job because they were treated poorly during the interview. Like,
we had a candidate get lowballed $10,000 in an offer when we submitted this person at a set rate, and like hiring managers, the hiring managers aren't going to listen to this probably. Like, what are you doing? How would that make you feel? Yeah. Right? We've taken the human out of the interviewing and job search process, where it's like, put yourself in the candidate's shoes. If you were lowballed $10K, how would that make you feel? Right? I'm not asking you to give that candidate a $50,000 raise. All I'm doing is asking you to meet, especially if you're going to use me and my team. We already set expectations. So like, there's no surprise. We're not over submitting people. That's not what we do. But yet you're still going to go out here and lowball.
And I got to say, like, this brings me back to a central core principle of mine. When you're hiring, it's sort of like nutrition for your body. What you eat is what your body ends up being, you know, like,
garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. If you eat junk, you're going to end up with health problems. You're going to end up with fitness problems. And it's the same thing with hiring. If you don't watch how you hire, if you don't treat them right, if you don't immediately think of them as, this person is going to be my company. This is going to be like, this is a chunk of my company. I know with bigger companies, like for us, we hire a person, it changes the culture for sure. But even for bigger companies, it's still over time is going to. And so if you're treating candidates poorly,
You're going to get poor candidates.
You're going to get poor candidates. You're going to get people who are desperate. You're going to get people. It's just not going to work out well for you. I think it's a lifeblood. It's so critical to hire the right way, even in a market where you have the leverage to act the way that they are and still hire people. It's, that's when you go out and you find the best people because they're available, but you still have to treat them right.
Totally. And I think to add to that and kind of what you said, Taylor, about companies ghosting candidates, I think that's a big one that our industry loves to do.
Loves.
The fact,
like if there's one thing, it's that.
I really do think, it doesn't take long to say, sorry, this is not a good match. That's it. I personally, when I was a hiring manager, I worked with a recruiter, and I worked with this one recruiter guy. We would be very close contact. Every candidate he brought to me, I always took the time out to say, hey, person X is not going to work out because of A, B, C.
Wonderful.
And he passed that along.
Wonderful.
And he said, if I have follow-up questions, do you want me to bring them back to you? And I said, yes, but the follow-up question is going to be harder for me to reply to because of time, but I'll promise to get to them at some point if the candidate really wants them. Don't ghost your candidate, because if you ghost your candidate, you're just going to you're going to bring up that culture of being the company that takes 500 applications on and maybe picks one or two who make it through. I've pulled myself out of interviews before because 2 weeks after an interview, I didn't hear from someone. So I said,
peace,
goodbye.
Right. If this is how you're
going to treat me through the interview process, I do not want to be a part of that.
I mean, I've been doing this so long now, where the initial conversation with the hiring manager and how they just treat me and my team is a direct reflection of how, like, Jamon treats me well. He doesn't view me as a recruiter. He views me as a friend. It's not surprising. There's a great culture at Infinite Red, right? It's not hard. It's not hard. Just treat people with respect and your entire, because I'm a true believer of you reap what you sow, right? Garbage in, garbage out, good vibes in, good vibes out. And for me, it's like, if you're doing the right thing by people, it's going to come back tenfold in your organization.
You mentioned this kind of in passing, but I want to dig in a little bit, that like things like the job description and whatnot are factoring into maybe not having the most diverse hiring pipeline. And it's not, in terms of React Native, it's not really a secret that it's all men. Like the survey that came out in 2023, it was like 2-3% or something like that, women. And I don't know the answers. So I'm curious what your perspective is on companies who want a more diverse hiring pipeline. What should they be doing, or what are they doing now that's causing the problem?
I'm glad you asked me this, because something I'm very passionate about building diverse teams. I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of, and really, we had one of the highest functioning teams, and we grew from 0 to 2 million in revenue. My team at my last company and I probably had the most diverse team. Like we were one of the faster growing teams, new teams at my last company. And we did it. We had one of the most diverse teams. So it's not a coincidence there, right? That's why I'm really passionate about this. Like, I think the first thing is, like, do you need a bachelor's degree? Do you need a bachelor's degree in your job description? Right?
No, you don't.
You don't.
Jamon,
do you have a bachelor's degree?
I do not.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. I got a
one.
bachelor's degree in management. I don't mean anything. Right. So like for me, so that's one prime example. Becca at Open Sauce, Becca Harrogate. She told me this story about how she was interviewing a while ago, and it's not currently, Brian, don't worry. It was like a while ago. And basically she came across a job description that looked great to her, right? And it said travel 4 times a year, up to 4 times a year. She said she didn't submit because she has 3 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question to that company is, do you need that person to travel 4 times a year? Or did you just put that in there because, like, you wanted to
seem impressed? Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, only the best way that I know how to write job descriptions, after reviewing job descriptions for my entire career, you need to have a summary and a mission statement, right? Gen Z, it is proven that Gen Z wants to work for companies that have a mission, right? That they are moving things forward. So I think a mission is incredibly important. What are you trying to solve? I think there needs to be a sell of the company. Like, the interview process is just much you selling the company as it is the candidate selling themselves, right? I talk about first round interviews should literally be most of the time you selling the role to the candidate. Right. Not even really talking to the candidate. And then have a required, like, here are the baseline things you have to talk to, right? Talk to us, right? you need to be able to spell React Native. Right.
Right.
And then the nice to haves are, you can put whatever you have, whatever you want for the nice to haves. Right. And then what that'll do is that'll be able to look at an applicant and the applicant will be able to look at it and be like, all right, I have the required, I'm going to submit my resume, but I don't have some of the nice to haves. I want to give a shout out to Brandon Bayer with Flight Control. He has a really great interview process. I've interviewed him where he does this open-ended assessment. It's not like where you type out answers, not technical answers, like soft skill answers. And he goes, it's a great way for me to kind of weed out who's serious or not. And I get to see their answers. So, and then also too, when it comes to diversity, like you got to hire juniors, you got to invest in juniors, right? Because that's where your diversity is going to come from. You got to have some sort of apprenticeship, internship. Like, how are you feeding the pipe in terms of like getting talent in? You know, I had a great interview. Joey, I forgot his last name. He was a VP of engineering at the Clorox company, which has a lot of companies under it. And we dove into like how he does apprenticeships and how he does internships, and he runs that wherever he pretty much goes from an engineering org perspective. And it was so insightful. So those are the things that I would say, like to build diversity and inclusion within your organization.
Yeah, the junior thing is hard for us because the type of company that we are
We're
really trying to be like super high level consultancy.
Right. It's hard. It's really hard to sell a client on, hey, we're going to put a junior on your team because they don't tend to like that. Even if we know that they're like a superstar junior and like they have all this potential, it's hard with the client.
It is tough, but I used to do that. Like my previous company, I hired actually a lot of the senior, high level developers at Infinite Red came from my previous company, and I hired them.
You literally
as
hired them as like no experience.
Taught them to code.
Taught them how like the basics of coding, and now they're senior. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I want to make a point of this in this podcast to say, like, they're still with Jamon today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you want retention? I've talked to so many junior developers. I volunteered a lot of my time at the National Software School in Nashville. You want junior developers to stay with you and build retention? Like, I've talked to so many junior developers that if I get a chance at a company, I will stay an extra two to 3 years longer than I need to because they gave me a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I had people leave, but also a lot of people stayed, and it was definitely worth it. But yeah, it's just hard with the model right now.
I get it.
I think the investment in the juniors and taking that and nowadays you could say risk is very important, because I look back at my career. Once I stopped playing soccer, coaching professionally, I wanted to get back into tech. And one guy, Francis, took a chance on me. And literally it was just me and him. And he was like, you're just going to do HTML, CSS. And like week 2, he's like, do you want to learn PHP? Do you want to learn SQL? And then eventually we built this whole e-commerce store together because he entrusted in me to do all this stuff. If he had decided not to switch his career, he's now like an autocar racer kind of thing. If he didn't decide to leave with tech, I would have probably stuck with him much longer. But then the company continued to invest in me and keep me on there as a manager, and I grew there. So that investment goes a long way.
I mean, every senior engineer who's working was a junior at one point, and somebody took a chance on them. Like, I'm where I am because somebody hired me straight out of code school as an intern, took a risk on me. It's so essential.
No, nobody hired me necessarily, when I was a junior.
Jamon just made his own company.
I made my own company, but that's not totally true, because the clients
took a chance on you.
They took a chance on me. It's like this kid who's kind of good at computers could maybe make me a website is kind of what it happened.
And who's a great hockey goalie?
I lost both my games this weekend.
Yeah, but listen, that was not your fault. That was not your fault.
No. 42 shots on goal. I only let in 2.
When you lose, it's not your fault.
Your offense has got to put the puck in the back.
When you win, it was all you.
I have definitely won. Little sideline. One time our game. So what happens if we're tied at the end of regulation is we go to a shootout. And so it was a playoff game. So you do a shootout until someone wins. I let in the first 4 shootout goals, but so did the other goalie. And then I stopped the 5th one, and he let in the 5th one. And so I let in 4 out of 5, which is terrible. Like, that's horrible, and still won. I did not take away from that I deserved that.
That's where that trophy came from. Goalies, we win games, we win finals sometimes. So
I love it. That's true. I'm a big soccer guy. Who's your team of choice?
Manchester United.
There you go.
I say that with a lot of pain.
A lot of pain. I've started to get into soccer, proper football as well because of the America's Cup and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And so I don't really have a team per se, but I love the storytelling and the tradition of. I'm actually playing as Manchester United right now in FIFA. So there you go.
There we go. +1 Taylor. And Nashville has a good team too. So
We actually
canned
our coach, our
Yeah.
OG coach. We've been on decline ever since the League's Cup, but we digress.
Hey, look, this is just for Mark. We got some sports ball in at the end of the podcast instead of the beginning.
Yeah, it's true. He always skips the beginning because there's too much sports.
So we got him by sneaking it in at the end.
Mark Rickert, one of our developers at InfiniRed.
We are close to the end of our time, but I want to make sure I ask this. You've been doing this for so long, and you said you have a Rolodex of 15,000 people, so I'm sure you've gotten this question a million times. But what if you could share what's your most often repeated advice to developers who are looking for a job? What would that be?
I mean, people roll their eyes. I mean, it's networking. And when I say networking, people are like, well, what does networking look like? I think it's the tactical in the DMs, liking and commenting on people's social media posts on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I mean, do I think everybody needs a podcast? No, but I think it makes it a whole hell of a lot easier to build relationships with, right? Like I wouldn't be here if I didn't invite Jamon on the show and Gan on the show. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's incredibly important to leverage your network right now. I've talked with a lot of director, VP of engineering individuals lately behind the scenes, and they're saying right now that they're getting like one director of engineering I know at a sports like betting company. He was like, because I of course slid into his DMs. I was like, hey, let me help you hire this role. And he goes, I would, but he goes, I had 15 referrals for one role.
Wow.
15 referrals for one role. I talked with another head of engineering here in Nashville. He had 3 engineers at the final round that were all referrals. And he goes, I would literally hire all 3 in a normal like market, normal economy. So
Referral is almost like a prereq.
Yeah, at this point it is. At this point it is.
Because if they're looking at an unknown candidate versus one that they have a personal recommendation for, it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
My conversations kind of ebb and flow with the market. It's funny looking back at my past tweets and kind of what I used to say versus what the market is now. And that's what I love about hiring. It changes. But my biggest piece of advice, folks, is like play the long game, start engaging with people, start liking people's comments, retweeting, giving thoughts, being thoughtful in the comments on LinkedIn, messaging people, hey, I love what you said here. That really resonates with me. Do that consistently, then start to build your network, then start to go for the ask. But too many people are going for the ask right now. Like my DMs, and I'm sure y'all's DMs too in leadership are like, hey, find me a job. It's like, you got to romance a girl a little bit once in a while.
Wine and dine a little bit.
Y'all.
Exactly.
So I would say that's my biggest piece of advice.
That's great. You're right. Most developers don't want to hear it because networking is like a bad word, but
it's just making friends.
It works.
I've come to
friends.
understand that it really is just making friends.
It is.
Yep.
It absolutely is. I mean, I saw that at ReactConf last week.
Talking
It
to
was
people
just
about
amazing.
their life, their job,
And usually if you can get out of the job talk, the faster you build relationships with.
Yep.
Right. So like
True.
Jamon and I have hockey right now, Mazen and I have soccer for proper football. Right. Robin and I have, F1.
Formula One.
Right. So it's like, again, like I was able to immediately build relationships with you all on the call because we didn't talk necessarily about work. We talked about what you're passionate about. Right. And so that's why I think from a networking perspective, if you can try to tie in, like a lot of people are like, I want to come up with this 30-minute elevator pitch. Well, first off, the elevator's broken. That is not an elevator pitch. That's a broken elevator pitch. And second off, like people want to like, beat people over the heads with like their technical skills and what they can do and what they've done. And while that's good, but like you're going to build more relationship if you talk to Robin about Lando Norris and how the entire F1 world cried when he won 2 races ago.
Oh
right.
God.
So like, again, like
so true.
Those are things that build relationships. Not
Permission
necessarily
from
talking about
Jamon
React
to wear
Native
my
all day.
F1 shirt to Chain React instead of the Chain Reactor.
Okay. I'm not the gatekeeper there. Todd would not be happy.
That's perfect advice there, because at the end of it all, underneath it all, we're all human and we all have lives outside of what we do when we sit in front of our desk. And quite frankly, it's usually more important because it's more impactful what happens off our desk. To bring it back to your desk is usually harmful and detrimental to you, company, family, etc.
Yep, absolutely.
Just to wrap up here, Taylor, and this has been amazing. Gun.io did not sponsor this or anything, but I do want to give you a little platform to kind of pitch what you do there. If someone is wanting to either hire you to help them find a developer, or if someone's looking for a job, what exactly is Gun.io? I know you talked about it a little bit before, and how do you in particular help them?
Yeah, so most people actually don't know about talent marketplaces. I didn't know about talent marketplaces until I was on the job search, right? So like, I think the first thing is I want to educate talent marketplaces. It is essentially a two-sided place where you can go, and it is a platform, is a web platform where you go and you sign up, you get into their system, you submit to jobs. Yeah, like that's what it is at a high level, right? Talent marketplaces, we take the recruiters out of it, is the easiest way to say it. Like it's essentially you go to there, you fill out your information, you get into their database, so you bypass the recruiters, and then we have a technical talent team made of VPs of engineering, and we like literally they have held like our current VP of technology is former Amazon, so like we have a technical staff on hand that helps vet people. But yeah, I mean, basically, like we were originally a heavy freelancing platform. We've kind of moved away from that from just from a branding perspective. But, we're really good if a company needs to hire somebody 20 hours a week, sure, you can use us. But we've built out some pretty cool products where we can really start helping enterprise clients. So we have a Discover Talent platform we just rolled out where like, if you're a hiring manager, you can like get on our app for free and you can run searches based off criteria. Like literally we've built like a mini LinkedIn recruiter where you can go in and plug in, I need a staff engineer that specializes in Node, that has an ecom background, who has AWS Lambda, and you press a button and then it pulls up all of our developers who have that in our system.
That's amazing.
So really cool. And we just rolled out a AI feature where you can copy and paste a job description into it, and it immediately syncs all the developers that are fit based off your job description, but you better have a good job description. So we just rolled that out as well. But yeah, and then also too, we do like traditional staffing where I can, if you need, we're working with a client who needs like 10 .NET engineers. So we're helping staff them up kind of your traditional way. So
makes sense. Awesome. Thanks so much, Taylor. This has been awesome. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm very online. My wife tells me I should be less online. So basically I'm on every single platform, Desseyn, Desseyn. I'm on every single platform but Snapchat. And then if you want to email me, Taylor Desseyn at gun.io.
Awesome. That's it for this episode. Robin, do you have a mom joke?
I have a good one. This is posted by Frank Calise, who you heard on the React Native 74 episode.
He's in Poland, hopefully.
He's in Poland going to App.js Conf. Hopefully.
Did he make it? Okay, good.
He did, yeah.
He had a flight snafu. We were a little worried about him. But what did coders use before debugging tools? Debugging tools. Oh, come on. It's good. You know you like it.
We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
As always, thanks to our production team, with editor Todd Worth, our assistant editor, this guy, Jed Vartosky, our director of communications and episode release coordinator, Justin Husky, and our guest coordinator, Derek Greenberg. Our producer and host is Jamon Holmgren, and executive producers and hosts are Robin Hines and Mazen Chami. Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check us out at infinite.red/React Native. A special thanks to all of you listening today. Make sure to subscribe to React Native Radio wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a review. We'd love to hear what you think.